What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. Personally, I consider myself one of the most hardcore gamers on the planet because all day and all night I'm always playing something. Whether it's on my PS Vita, the PlayStation 4, or something on the Nintendo Switch, there's just so many good things that I'm always ready to dive into. But that doesn't mean that I've been able to complete every single game I've picked up. Sometimes you get a game and despite the fact that you want to beat it, you get terribly sick, it gets stolen, or something along those lines. This week, I want to do something a little bit unique, which is just tell you 10 different stories about times I fully intended to try and finish something, but something in the universe just made it downright impossible. These are my picks of the top 10 games I tried to beat and absolutely failed. Number 10. Condemned 2 Bloodshot. One of my greatest passions in life is horror. Getting scared in both movies and games is so fun to me, but something about this, it really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The original Condemned did have a lot of jump scares, but they felt like they were earned. It was a game that tried to creep you out by creating a universe where at any moment your own mind could break down and something will flop out and try and kill you right away. But Condemned 2, it kind of just got under my skin by having these weird moments where you'd walk through dark hallways and there'd be gooey monsters, and honestly, they started to just really mess with me, so I ended up just quitting this game because to me, it was too scary in a really uncomfortable way. Number 9. Banjo-Kazooie. If you ask anyone today, they'll probably tell you that this is one of the greatest 3D action adventures ever made. It's a platformer that's all about collecting things and just really kind of enjoying yourself. It's got such a cutesy art style and a really solid way of controlling yourself, but that didn't stop me from getting lost. In fact, I could not figure out where to go in this game at all after a bit, so I ended up buying a strategy guide. However, it turns out that guide was missing pages, so the one thing I absolutely needed to do, I could never figure out, and eventually I just got frustrated and gave up. Number 8. Pillars of Eternity. Perhaps one of the best things that's come about in modern gaming is incredibly long RPGs. We now have the technology and studio size to create games that are 100 hours long, all filled with cool side quests and big battles and stuff that's really meant to suck you in and keep you engaged. I will say that for Pillars of Eternity, I absolutely loved it. It was super fun. The problem was that it's just so freaking long that eventually I got turned around and just didn't know what to do next. It's one of those games that just got overwhelming. After about 4 weeks of playing it, I just found myself in a random dungeon one day and just said, do I really need to beat this? And unfortunately, I told myself, not really. Number 7. Assassin's Creed Origins. This was one of the highest rated games in all of last year. People were saying that this was a modern masterpiece, a game that managed to reinvent a long-running franchise and do something truly different. The problem is, I could never really feel all that hype. This game, it just felt like it was missing a key ingredient, but I wanted to give it a fair chance. So I sat down and started beating mission after mission, leveling up and figuring out where to go. And while it was enjoyable, it just never really had that charm, the thing that was supposed to make me want to keep playing it. So despite the fact that this is everyone else's favorite game of 2017, to me, it's something that's still sitting on my shelf and making me feel guilty. Number 6. Star Ocean Second Evolution. Here we have a remake of one of the most highly regarded hidden gem role-playing games ever. Star Ocean 2 was considered by most to be, well, an utter masterpiece, a game that seems to try and push the boundaries of what an RPG can be. And this remake really seemed to try and expand on that and add even more things to love and cool new sparkly graphics. And for the most part, I was totally invested. I got sucked in and really liked it for about the first half. But then I noticed that I feel like my characters weren't getting strong enough, and it turns out that I completely misunderstood the leveling system. There are all these skill points that need to be properly utilized in order to maximize how good you can play, and since I didn't get that, I ended up having a really underpowered party, and eventually it just kind of got me mad about the fact that I'd screwed up my entire playthrough. So instead of starting again, I just decided to put the game down and play something else. Number 5. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Now, this game is different from the other things on the list because I've legitimately tried to complete this on multiple occasions and just never been able to do it because of terrible problems in real life. The first time, I was really close to the end when suddenly my roommate, who was a total jerk, ended up stealing my 3DS and selling it. So I was really invested at this point and I was like, okay, I love that game and I really want to see it done. So I ended up buying another 3DS and another copy of it and going really deep into it before it freaking disappeared. I don't know what happened, but I assume that somebody ended up stealing my second 3DS. And so because of it, now I actually keep the empty box to Dark Moon on my shelf to remind myself that this is a super cool game that someday I'm probably going to finish, but right now I'm just cursed to not be able to complete it. Number 4. Ghostbusters. I've been reviewing games on YouTube now for a couple years, and I've had some real highs and some real lows, but this one is one that actually kind of haunts me because it's the only game I've ever failed to review. It's not that this game is terrible, although let's face it, it's probably one of the worst games ever made. I still wanted to try and beat it, but the thing was, as soon as I installed it, I got super sick, probably one of the most ill I've ever been. So I tried to just beat the sickness, to take a bunch of pills, help myself out, and really try and muscle through it. I ended up waking up with the controller in my hand with this game just blaring. I realized that I was actually so sick, I was hallucinating that it might be not as terrible. But this thing is just so aggravating and so boring, I couldn't even focus. So I decided that instead of actually beating this game, I'd get some much needed bed rest. And now, every single time I lay eyes on this game, I actually feel a little bit guilty that I wasn't able to finish that project on this absolutely awful game. Number 3. Super Paper Mario. Okay, time for a little bit of a controversial opinion, and please don't get mad at me for this, but I really don't like this game at all. The thing is, after playing the first 2 Paper Marios, I was really hoping that this would be something similar in style, even if it wasn't necessarily something with turn-based combat or that cutesy funniness to it. I was hoping that Super Paper Mario would at least be close to that, and it's not. This is basically a very silly, very open-ended style of game. You kind of just wander around in big open levels, solving 2D and 3D puzzles. It's not that this game is terrible, I can see the fact that it is good, but to me it is really, really bad because it's just not what I was craving. And since it was something that was just so out of my element, I ended up just putting it down and picking up Mario Galaxy instead. And that was so fantastic that I never had the heart to go back and finish off Super Paper Mario. Number 2. Mega Man X3. The Blue Bomber is definitely renowned for having some games that can be rather difficult in certain sections. It's not that the games overall are just too hard, but they can definitely have these points that are supposed to test you, to make sure you're good enough to beat that level and then progress. X3 though, the entire way through is pretty dang hard. In fact, there were parts that I just got completely stuck on. Now, I was able to beat Mega Man X1, 2, 4, 5, all of those were easy because I would use the help of friends. We'd basically take turns doing different lives, and eventually we conquered the entire series. Everything except for X3. This game just melts my brain. I can't get anywhere in it. While it is possible for me to kill certain bosses, in general, I can't get anywhere close to the final fight. And even now, as an adult and with way more gaming experience, Mega Man X3 is a game that I've tried over and over again, and I just can't beat. Number 1. Shadow Tower. Over the course of the last decade, I've become a massive, hardcore fan of Dark Souls. Each one of these games provides such a unique challenge, but on top of that, I've really become invested in the different lore. There's this cool underlying mythos that makes the universe seem so alive, and I ended up wanting to try and investigate, to see how a studio like From Software could come up with such a brilliant idea, and I decided to play through several of their older games, and this is one that I just absolutely absolutely could not beat. Shadow Tower is sort of like a first-person version of Dark Souls back on the PlayStation 1. I'd even say that a lot of different parts of this were directly taken and later applied to Dark Souls. Things like the stamina meter and having creepy messages just hidden around the levels in order for you to find and get your own piece of extra mythology. The thing is, this game controls like butt. It is extremely clunky and to the point at which I'd say that it's really unplayable. It's one of those games that makes it feel like your controller is broken because every part of it is so unresponsive. But even still, I really do honestly regret that I was never able to get to the final credits. This is just one of those games that I feel like did, in its own small way, end up influencing so many of the best masterpieces of our time. Now, it's just one of these games that sits on my shelf and reminds me that I am never, ever going to be able to beat this, no matter how hard I try. Is one of your favorite games on this list and you want to tell me about it? Well, tell me how it ends in the comments down below and maybe I'll give it a second look. Do you have a story of your own of a time where you really sat down and wanted to beat something and just couldn't get past it? Tell me about that too, because really, I kind of just want to have the comment section be a big story time. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Seriously, give this video a like, because this was a really fun one to make. I mean, look, I actually was filming this so many times over that my Vita died pretending to play it. I'm an idiot. Oh, hi. I'm just working on the next video. If you want to see what it is, go ahead and click this button and you can subscribe. Also, if you click these video links, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. Now I'm just going to sit here for a minute and wait for you to subscribe. Oh, I guess I could put on these giant glasses. I literally found these on a roller coaster.